So let's jump straight to our, Hannah, actually, it has been 16 weeks, since we did our Faithful God series, and tonight is actually, last Sunday was the last preaching for, at least for the first half of it, because we're going to continue. There's still a lot to unpack for our next season. Actually, I'm excited for next year. There's still more. It's actually, as we move on to the story, it gets terrible. Actually, that just gets bad. But of course, there's a lot. It highlights God's faithfulness despite of God's people's disobedience. So that's why she's faithful God. So as we wait a little bit more, so I want to ask you, what is of the 16 weeks, right? After 16 weeks, what is your one takeaway from? And of course, I also want to ask you anything. It's like what is one takeaway that you got from our Faithful God series? You can go ahead, Victory SoCal fans, to type and mention.
I've been in the comments below.
Yes. Let's make this an interactive interaction.
Now, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of insight from a lot of people. These past 16 weeks have been
there's a lot. Yes. It could be the highlighting, of course, that's always the highlight's always God. Of course, what is one thing? Is it how God used one of the judges, or some of the stories? After 16 weeks, for me personally, I would never look at the book judges the same again. I mean, the characters have been. Every week it has been resonating in my heart. So how about you, Hannah? What's your one?
Well, I guess the overarching really is that amidst all of the sinful nature of man, our being stubborn and not being obedient to God, He is always faithful, and I just admire that. And every week when we learn about a different judge or when we talk about a different character in the book of Judges, it always amazes me how God forgives us so mercifully and loves us so much, and I can't explain how much God loves us. It just overwhelms me.
Yes, I agree, and actually that's also my takeaway. Is that God's faithfulness, God has shown His faithfulness towards His people every time, all throughout. So as we move on to our message, let's do a recap for last Sunday's message, Jepthah 2, right? So, of course, as we look into this, it's the cycle of sin keeps on happening. After 300 plus years, the cycle of sin, Israel would fall into sin. Then Israel would be in bondage, and then Israel would cry out to God, and God would raise up a judge. And in this story, God has raised up Jepthah. Of course, a judge is somewhat of a deliverer, a military leader, of course, a shofet, right? So despite Jephthah's difficult past, God still used him to rescue Israel, right? So, and of course, all of the story, you could look the whole chapter 11 and chapter 12 about Jephthah's story, and from 11:29 we saw that the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jepthah, right? So it came upon Jepthah and it empowered him, and he made a vow. Just when he was about to advance, he made a vow to the Lord, right? In verse 30 and 31, he said that if God will give him the victory against the Ammonites, or whatever comes out to greet him in battle, he will sacrifice it as a burnt offering. Wow. That's why I wrote it in my topic, it's the vow, right? So, all right, so, and of course, in verse 32, 33, we saw there the 20, true enough, 20, God has helped him, 20 Ammonite towns have been destroyed, although the author didn't mention how long, but then after his victory, he went back to his hometown in Mizpah, right? So in verse 34, 35, this is what happened. Jepthah's daughter was the first one to greet him. Actually, it's customary in their culture that women would come out to greet whenever somebody would go out in battle, and would come from, the men would come back, people would greet them. So it's interesting because Jepthah has been.
I wonder why you made that vow.
So that's why it was so. Regardless of it, he could have known. I was doing my study, and of course, all I can say is that it was a reckless vow, as we have learned from last Sunday's message, right? So it was actually a rash vow and unnecessary vow. If you look at it, it doesn't need to make that vow, but there's actually punishment when you make a vow. They could look at the book of Leviticus. There's so many laws about people making vows, right? So there are actually, with that, Jepthah's daughter was the first one to greet him, right? So there are actually two viewpoints to say about Jepthah's vow, right? So first is that he literally killed and sacrificed her daughter because of the term burnt offering. And it was actually, there were some good arguments about this. So, and so Jepthah, second is that Jepthah gave another viewpoint with this, or school of thought, would be Jepthah gave her to the tabernacle as a servant instead of sacrificing her. So the daughter didn't die.
So not a literal, offering.
Not a literal offering. So, and it's actually like the text said, so Jepthah offered up his daughter by dedicating her to the service of the Lord, but not by killing her.
Yes.
Right. So much like Hannah. Not you, Hannah to Samuel. Right? So Hannah to Samuel. So Jepthah was actually, you would notice the author's story about Jepthah's life and also his consistency. Jepthah was included in the Hall of Fame, right? So alongside David and Samuel, I believe that he couldn't have been included if he literally sacrificed her daughter, just like the Canaanites have sacrificed their children to their gods. In Leviticus 20, verse 1 to 5, the Lord's commandment to Moses is about forbidding child sacrifice. Right? So throughout the story in the author of Judges, Jepthah remained consistent about his faithfulness to the Lord. He was actually knowledgeable about God's commands. So that's why I would say, so both viewpoints are good, but I would stand on the second viewpoint, that Jepthah didn't kill his daughter, but offered her to the Lord, to the tabernacle, all the days of her life.
So offered her life in servitude, or like serving God.
Yes, and of course it's a costly vow because that was the end of her lineage, and that's why the author mentioned actually that she remained a virgin. Right, so that's why. So tonight, we're going to look at Jepthah's vow through the lens of the daughter.
Wow.
Why vow?
Because when I was reading this passage, I was actually thinking about, I wonder what the daughter thought. So that's why I said wow, because God answered my curiosity with your...
because it is serious. Like, okay, how is it that the response of the daughter has been, it's like he's honoring his father, but it's, of course, you'd like to look at it at the lens, a different viewpoint, different aspect. So the viewpoint of the daughter.
Yes.
It's one thing if the vow. It's one thing if the vow only affected the life of his father, right? So it's like Jepthah would read. You know what? If he would, if Jepthah approached his daughter, said, "I made a vow to the Lord," and what is it? And then it didn't involve the daughter. Then maybe the daughter would be like, "Okay, Dad, okay, Pops, okay, Father." But this one didn't. It's different because the daughter is involved. So like I said, but it was a reckless vow. The reckless vow actually affected the course of her life as a parent. Like I was studying this, I'm like, wow, it really is a reckless vow. If I would involve my son, involve your daughter into that vow. And there were actually there were famous women in the Old Testament, right, that were mentioned, like Leah, Rachel, Miriam, Deborah, and even fast forward, Rahab, of course, Hannah also. But here, Jepthah's daughter, right, unnamed, unknown, right? but her role was significant in the life of her clan during that time. Right? It was significant, and the people of Israel actually during that time, as we actually saw, right, that towards the end, chapter 40, we saw how I would say they were commemorating her vow, that she honored her vow, right? So with that, I'd like to share with you 3 things, and from the viewpoint of the daughter, like what lesson can we learn from Jephtah's daughter? Like, okay, so from her experience, right? So number 1, here's what we can learn, is that life can make an unexpected turn. Let me say that again. Life can make an unexpected turn. We can see here, and of course, let's just go straight to life can make an unexpected turn. This was her response to her father. He said in verse 36, "My father, you have given your word to the Lord. You have given your word to the Lord. Do to me as you promised, now that the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the Ammonites." Right? So, verse 37, "But grant me this one request." She said, "Give me 2 months to roam the hills and weep with my friends because I will never marry." Right? So that's why I highlighted it, my father. Life can make an unexpected turn. Like, so as the daughter, she learned about his father's vow to the Lord. She would never be a wife. That's one. So that's from the text. It said, okay, so what's the significance of that? Was she betrothed to someone? It's like, oh, that's what the first thing that came to her mind. It could be that. But of course, she would never to be a mother.
She would never have a family.
She would never have a family of her own. So during their time, being a mother actually establishes, of course now, so significance of posterity. Significance because, of course, during a patriarchal society, being a mother is different. It puts higher posterity, influence, and blessings that come from raising children. So that's why being the only daughter, so that's actually shocking, and it could be. It's like it has taken an unexpected turn in her life. Right? She would never be, I was thinking like, she would never be betrothed to someone. Or maybe in the future, like maybe that imagine that, right? So she was, I think she was a teenager at this time, and it's for sure it's a difficult situation. So truly this vow has made an unexpected turn in her life. Unexpected. Because she wasn't expecting this, she imagine that, Anna. She was just excited to see her father back from the war, right? Oh, my father is alive. Yes. Oh, yes, that alone gives you joy, right? Knowing that your father was victorious, your father didn't die. It's like, okay, I'm so happy that you're here.
That she actually went out to meet him because she was so happy.
Yeah. It's like, when you come from work, your kids would approach you, right? Maybe that's how it is, So, but this one is different. This situation would be the last thing that she would expect to happen. The last thing in her mind. But the daughter's response, look at that. Daughter's response to the vow of his father. The Lord speaks of her spiritual maturity.
Even though she was only a teenager then.
Even though, It speaks also of the character of his relationship, of Jepthah's relationship to his father, right? So, but she didn't react, that's one thing. After that vow, she didn't react. She didn't turn violent. She's like, why? She was still honoring his father. She insisted her father to keep his vow. That's why she said that. Right? He said that you have given your word to the Lord. That's an amazing thing, right? So, just looking at that. Now, here's my kind of like my application to this. So we can make plans for our future. We could prepare for, as you grow up, or so you prepare for the best education for your kids, best education for yourself. You could get different degrees, get doctorate degree, get masteral to get higher, month, let's say, per hour, or get a business. You could prepare for the best health. You could be the most buff person. You could
Most
be the most
physically fit. Yeah.
healthiest person who doesn't eat a lot of, who eats a lot of vegetables.
Like Pastor Robert.
Pastor Robert. Yeah, he loves broccoli. Best health. You could have the best, prepare yourself to a best financial situation. You could prepare yourself to be, to be the most beautiful or most handsome person. But the reality is, there are times that things happen that we don't have control.
Right.
Things would happen in life that could place in a unexpected turn in your life that you do not have control.
Yes.
Like actually, as people, we want to be control of our lives, right?
Yes.
But this situation, that's when reality hits you, when you think like you do not have control of the situation. When an unexpected turn would happen, that's when you kind of pause and sit back, right? So, and reflect. You know what? We don't have control of what the future brings. We don't have control. We will face unlikely and unfortunate things in life. So as I move on, so let me ask you, have you experienced some unexpected turns in life? Or what are those? Right? So are you going to say something?
Well, I was just thinking, it may not be literal, but in life nowadays, some parents they promise their children or plan the future of their children. That may not be what the children plan. For example, like, I already promised you to be in medical school, for example, or something changes because of a vow, let's say, or plans that our parents that in this case, like her father made, and it could be life changing, right? But even like what you said, I was just reflecting on that. Like even if you plan, not even unexpected things can happen, and so what do you do? Like right there, like how do you respond? And looking at her response was like, you said you made a vow to the Lord, and you have to honor that, and it's just so admirable for me thinking about how she responded that way, honoring God. But going back to your question, has there been?
No, have you experienced? But actually, before that, let's just go ahead and read some of the comments. The one thing JC said, the one thing that I learned is even though we compromise our faith, that He is faithful enough to give us infinite chance to refocus ourselves to Him on the things we compromise on the first time. Okay. Yeah, and Gabby just wondering why did Jepthah never had any more children after his daughter. So, why do you think, Anna?
My theory is that if she was offered to serve God in ministry, for example, to the temple, that she devoted her life there. That's why she said, "I will never marry," right? And that's why Jepthah never had. She was an only child, right? She was an only child.
Why did Jepthah never had any children? After his daughter.
Let's ask God.
Maybe. There are some situations in the Bible that it would be highlighted. Now, if this one wasn't highlighted, then it means it wasn't that mentioned. It wasn't mentioned, right? So anyway, going back to this about unexpected turns in life. So, are you currently facing those, right? So, and how are you handling it? Sometimes as I look at this, like things are going well in your career, then sometimes unexpectedly you face a financial difficulty, right? So things would be going well, then the company that you're working for, all of a sudden will go retrenched. So
big layoff.
Yeah. So you don't have control of that situation. You could be like, I've been here for 25 years, so I'm secure financially. I purchased since I'm secure. I have so many plans for my family and some stuff. And then when that thing happens, an unexpected turn, how do you respond? Right? So it could be different aspects. We experience that. There sometimes things are going well, then a family member gets sick. You know, so actually, as I was studying this, I would be reminded like on how, the moment when it's almost similar to for us, like when we made that decision, Lord, we want you to be the Lord, and we committed our life to Lord. We wanted to, personally, I cannot speak for you. It was like, okay, Lord, you will be, I'm not just the Savior, but the Lord of all my life. And after that decision, I just learned, this was like 2008, I just learned that my mom had cancer. Remember? That's why I was saying that, because we were studying back in life. So those are things like you do not have control, right? It's like when you surrender, sometimes unexpected things in life happen. Right? So.
And she was far away.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that is difficult. Things would, of course, it could be, even go through like when things are going well, you're serving God, and then somebody gets sick and a family member passes away. Right, so those are difficult, unexpected turns. Sometimes there are small ones. There's sometimes it's so big of a shift. It's so big that it impacts your life, right? So small ones like things are going well, and then you come back from church, you get an hour passionate discussion with your spouse. It's like, how would it happen like this? You just came from church, or you're about to go to serve on a Sunday, right? So and then that happens, right? So that's it. So just that's why I wrote this. Sometimes even like, or you made this commitment, like sometimes, oh Lord, I want to commit to the building fund. I want to partner with the building fund campaign. It's a joy to partner with God with this. Then all of a sudden you get laid home. How does that happen? Right? So do you still continue?
That's not a reckless vow.
It's not a reckless. No, but God still did hear God's vow.
Yes.
Right? So, all right. So
what do you do?
What do you do? So unexpected turns in life also reveal the condition of our hearts.
That's a good one.
It reveals the condition of our hearts, where the heart is rooted. So, because if things are going well, nothing is happening. If you're fine. But when an unexpected turn, it would reveal where you are rooted. Is it rooted in Christ or yourself? Right, so. Let's go ahead. Let me pause. Hannah, go ahead and read Jane.
I love that a lot of people are. Thank you for putting down your comments. We love to hear from you and how the word is resonating in your hearts. So John Carlo, JC Sinon. Oh, you read this?
Jane.
Oh, Jane. Okay, Jane.
Yeah.
Okay, Jane says, I love looking at the story from the daughter's perspective. God really has a purpose for every character and wants us to learn from their life, regardless of how much it was touched in Scripture. Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
even though Jepthah's daughter was not named, but see, we are talking about her now and learning from her actions and how she responded to.
Yes.
To
I agree. So there's so many kind of unexpected turns that we will experience. Actually, it could be the receiving a new approved lease for a business or maybe a new apartment. Just make sure when you see that unexpected turn, it could be for good or bad situation. Right? So is God exalted? That's what I'm trying to say. So, but that's one. Life can make an unexpected turn. It's from Jepthah's daughter's perspective. Life has made an unexpected turn, right? So another lesson that we can learn from her situation is that when an unexpected turn happens, you should surround yourself with people who will encourage you.
That's true.
Surround yourself with people who will encourage you. when an unexpected turn happens, surround yourself with people who will encourage you. It says here in verse 38, right? So, you may go, he said, and he let her go for 2 months, right? So, she and her friends went into the hills and wept because she would never marry. So, Jepthah's daughter, upon learning of her situation, she didn't isolate herself. She's like, let me just pause and just go by myself. You know? She asked her father at the very moment that she mentioned about having this discussion, she mentioned already that she asked her father to be with her friends, whom she can lean on and cry on during an unexpected, difficult moment of her life. Right? So, the question is why? Why go to the hills? Why go to the mountain? Why go to the valley, like where Laika is? Who was so why would, in the Old Testament, like people will go to the mountains to be with God, so to commune with God, the most, like to go up mountains to pray. So,
even Jesus went to the mountain.
Yes, exactly. So that's what it is. So she was with her friends. To help her get through a difficult moment. It was this unexpected turn has resulted to a difficult moment in her life, right? She has accepted it. That's the truth, right? The daughter didn't want, but the thing is, she didn't wander alone in the fields. It could be like she was just afraid to be by herself, but she brought friends to be with her, to encourage her. Brought friends with her to be with her. This could. I'm just wondering. 2 months, right? She said that's 60 days. This could have been the longest 2 months of her life. Longest 2 months. Because imagine, have you experienced crying for a day?
Yeah.
Like, when we were young, we would cry. We would get spanked. You cry in our lolas. You get spanked. You cry, you weep. This is not just a minor, I get teary-eyed. No, this is like weep. So I would weep mourning.
It's mourning, actually.
Yeah.
I would imagine not just Jepthah, but her friends that were there were mourning for her. Because it's like...
Those are real friends.
Yes.
This is not like, okay, just one day, are you still crying? Okay, good. That hurt. No. Her friends stayed with her. Right? So, the thing is I think the reality is that she knew that she only has one life to live. Right? And she would live a life that is not how she would have planned it. Because it is different now. It is critical at this time. During a critical moment.
All her plans down the drain.
Exactly. Right? So during the critical moment that she is being surrounded by the right people. When you are in a position, in a situation that you are in an unexpected turn in your life. Right? So it's important you be surrounded with the right people. People who can give you proper advice, just like this one. At the same time, to encourage during a difficult moment. And it's actually mentioned in the book of Proverbs, Hannah, in Proverbs 13:20. This is a familiar verse, could be, walk with the wise and become
wise.
Yeah, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Right? So surround yourself with people, as we put this in application. So surround yourself with people you can lean on during an unexpected turn. You should be careful. You should be guarding yourself. Am I covering myself with the right people? Right. There's people who would just share tough moments. Surround yourself with people who share the right values. Yes. Have the right values as what you value. Do you share what are those? Do you value what God values? Right? So, or do you have the right people?
Or may not necessarily share the same things that you value, but are that would provide godly wisdom. Because I think in the next few moments, those 2 months that she spent with her friends are very critical, because they could have easily convinced her not to go through with it, right? There's 2 months. If I were a bad friend, I would say it day in, day out. Don't go through, just don't go home, don't go back. Yeah. Right? They could have convinced her not to go through with it. But still, they were good friends. They let her keep the vow of the father.
Exactly.
Jepthah.
Actually, I'm not sure if I did in the next one. So, but yeah, you're right. That's right on point. That's 100% right. So, yeah, when you're faced with difficult, do you have the right people? Do you have the right people that you can count on when a difficult situation would happen? Sit, pause and reflect. Do you have those? Right? People who would remind you, hey, what you're doing is wrong.
Giving you that gentle rebuke with love.
Gentle, exactly. So,
or firm but with love,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Or you just surround yourself with people, like who are those are yes men. Like they will just say yes to the things that you're doing, regardless if it is right or wrong. Right? So, do you have those? I'm not gonna mention some people, but you just have to guard.
Yeah.
You have to surround yourself with the right people who will encourage you during those times, because it's a critical moment in your life. It could make or break the decision in the future, right? So that's why sometimes if you are associated with the wrong people, like people who would enablers, enable the things. Okay, maybe they wouldn't say That's the thing. So if they wouldn't say, they wouldn't. They would just say yes. They would say anything. They did enablers, right? So okay, what are those? What are those things that they are enabling? What are the things that you're doing wrong? And you know in your heart you're doing wrong, but at the same time, the people around you are not correcting you.
Because they may not be the people who are. Because sometimes in a group there's peer pressure, but sometimes you're not the one being pressured. You're just the one doing it, but nobody's correcting the bad thing, for example.
Exactly. That's why it's hard to be in a victory group. Because people would be reminding you of speaking the truth in love.
Your victory group leader will speak the truth in love.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's why our victory group. Alright, so those are things that we have to watch out. Surround yourself with people who would encourage you. And
I agree.
And of course, lastly, I only have. Oh, hold on. Let me just. The last thing that we could learn from this lesson, on the perspective of the daughter, is that you face the situation. Face the situation and trust that God is in control. When an unexpected expected thing would happen in you, aside from surrounding yourself with the people around you, with people who will encourage you, you face the situation.
That's hard.
That is hard.
Face the situation,
And trust that God is in control.
Yeah.
You can see here in the text, right? Verse 39. So, after 2 months of weeping with the friends, right? You can see there in the text. Right? She returned to her father, and he did to her as he had done, right? And she was a virgin. So that's it. Jepthah's daughter, after 2 months, fulfilled her promise. She fulfilled her promise. She faced it courageously, I would say. Does she want it? No, maybe no. There's still some signs of, should I do this? Should I complacent? But she did it. She faced the situation. She went back home. And she remained a virgin. She
remained pure.
Yes, exactly. Though difficult, she faced an unexpected turn in her life. She didn't run away. Just like what you mentioned with the friends, right? So she didn't run away. She faced it and obeyed her father. God is in control over her situation, right? And she faced it. So the thing is, when placed in a difficult, unexpected situation, our tendency is to run away. It's easy to neglect. It's easy to put that behind, or the worst, Not face it, but run away from it. Those challenges, those unexpected turns in your life. Instead of facing it, it's difficult. That's why you would just decide to run away from it. God is telling you to obey. Obey in this situation. But instead of obeying, you do the opposite. You know in your heart. So when a problem arises, right? Fear, of course, when unexpected turn would arise, problem would arise. Fear, these are the immediate things that when you do not have control. When you do not have control, fear would arise. Stress. I do not have control over my work situation. There's so much pressure.
For those who would like control, it's so hard.
You would just run away. It's easy. Or just
or blame others. If something unexpected happens. For me, if I were in that situation, I'd be blaming Jepthah. Father, why did you make this vow? Why did you put me in this position? Or perhaps if I spent those 2 months, if the sinful nature in me would probably think, oh, I have 2 months to do whatever I want to do, and then just go back. I'll just face the music, face the situation after 2 months. But within these 2 months, let me do whatever I want to do, Lord. And I'll just come back after 2 months. But she remained pure and went to the mountains, the hills with the right company.
And that speaks of her character, right? So, and that's why she was commemorated from this and that's why that each year in verse 40, the young women of Israel go out for 4 days to commemorate the daughter of Jepthah. It's because of the action, right? So let me just go ahead and read. I don't know. There's for me, JC mentioned. For me, there's an expected event happening in my life. And that God handled the situation and moved forward because I know that God has a purpose in this situation, and I know that He has promised and something stored for my life, for which I know something that's
beautiful and sweet.
Wow,
JC. That is trust. That's the trust that we were just talking about. Facing the situation and trusting in God because it's unexpected, right? And I think God is a God of unexpected things. It's like, He will always be faithful. It's one thing. So if you trust in Him, then even if you don't know what's going to happen, then you have that peace.
But at the same time, God is a God of order, is in control. It's like He doesn't know. So when you put your trust in Him, that's why I mentioned.
We're just the ones surprising.
Exactly. That's why I mentioned on point 3 that God is in control. We may not be in control of the situation, but God is for sure.
That's a good.
And an unexpected turn happen, you do not have control, but God is.
Right.
It may, from the physical onset of it, we may see like, I do not. Why is this happening? Right. So it could be a marital or financial, whatever challenge you're facing, you do not have control over things. But God is control. He is sovereign. Right?
So for us, it's unexpected, but He knows.
Exactly.
Because He knows everything. He's planned everything.
Of course, when you experience, like when you do not have control, right? You would you would have a feeling of hopelessness. Those are some things that you would think, when you don't have control, you would have despair or confusion. At the back of your, when you're about to sleep, at the back of your brain, you feel since you do not have control, it just go over and over. You would feel that.
Or maybe you don't get sleep because of the stress, the anxiety.
You don't get sleep because you're watching too much on your social media. So anyway, you may want to protect yourself from these feelings by distancing yourself from the situation. Distancing it, just putting it on that side. You don't want to. It's there. It's there. You don't want to face it.
I don't want to deal with this right now. Escaping.
Are those your children? I don't want to deal with it. Or is it right?
No,
is it right?
It's right. I know. He's watching.
Let me just mention what Kevin wrote here. Obedience to the point of death like Christ, maybe death to self for her.
Oh, death to self.
Yeah. Yes. So, yeah. So, I know what you mentioned earlier about escapists, right? So, some people will have. That's true. That's you people have the escapist mentality.
Yeah.
Just escape. The great escape.
Yeah.
You can do wonders.
It's either like some people would want to escape, not confront the situation, not deal with it, right, and escape their reality, or others would just wallow in self-pity, like, I'm so, why is this happening to me, right? And but her, she actually took charge of the situation. She faced it head on, and didn't seem like she had any doubts. She was not. It was not the best news. She was not feeling great. You could tell she was mourning for 2 months. But
So,
she faced it.
That's the truth. So, as you look at this, reflect, like people would normally, like the opposite of that, right? People would run away from their issues instead of just relying and trusting God. Trusting God immediately. That's our default. It's like normally would rely on yourself. Yes, but if you rely on God immediately and knowing that He has control over a situation, the opposite of fear, stress, anxiety, you would have God's peace.
Right.
Regardless if you feel like if you do not have control of it, right? You would God's peace. You will. It's like have you seen like people like you would go into like I would say a visit, right? So our good friend, she's like that's an unexpected turn through it, right? So it's sorry if I'm mentioning this right now. Not putting you in but this is just one thing that popped in my head, right? It's like, of course it's difficult, but at the same time, she comes here every Sunday.
She serves.
She serves. As a family, they would come, and they have faced, that's her testimony. Like she would come in and face, it's difficult.
Yeah, it is.
Right? It is difficult.
Because it's difficult for us, so I know how much more for them.
Absolutely, 100%. And as they, it's encouraging for us, but at the same, so it encourages me, knowing that I know someone relationally that in a tough situation you could still press on and face the challenge, the difficulty, and just trusting God.
Trust that God is in control.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it. How do you normally respond? Right? As you reflect on this, it's the last point. How do you normally respond when an unexpected situation in your life happens? Relational, financial, health-wise. Do you run away or isolate yourself?
Do you blame God or blame others?
Yeah. Or sometimes, as you run away, you result in some addictions, right? To give you temporary healing. Addiction to drug, addiction to medication, addiction to those are temporary stuff, right? So that you would take. It would give you temporary. You still don't have control over that situation, maybe personally.
And it's not gonna fix your situation in any way.
Yeah.
It's just giving you temporary relief.
Yes.
Very fleeting.
Yeah. So with that, face the situation, right? You are faced in an unexpected turn. Face the situation. Trust God that He is in control.
Trust.
Yeah. Rather than running away from it. Rather than putting it aside, setting it aside. Right? So it could be when things are, you don't have control of things. Instead of running away, just, face it, Alright, so now we are, so anything you want to add before
I'm just processing, actually the first time I read, when I read the passage, I was thinking to myself, why, Jepthah? Why did you do that? Why did you make that vow? And I was thinking, sometimes we make vows to God thinking that if we do that, then He will give us what we want. When in reality, He's just gonna do what's according to His will. It's not us bargaining that would make Him give us what we are asking for. And as a result of that vow, this happened, right? But sometimes these reckless vows, like in this case, some unexpected things happen, right? But sometimes we don't realize that it's for our own good. So I was just thinking, like, when you're talking about our mother who had cancer years ago, actually twice she had cancer. We didn't realize then that God allowed that for us to be closer to God, actually. And for us to be able to come here together as a family. And so that was an unexpected thing that happened to our family. But God used that if we just obeyed, because we obeyed Him. And acknowledged that He entrusted in Him, right? And had faith that He would take care of us. Then He actually took care of us and actually showed us that He was in control. So I was just thinking about that. Like, there's so many things that could happen that you plan. I don't know if other people will react, but I'm more of a planner. Like, I want to know what's going to happen the next few months. Like, I have a plan A, plan B. But most of the time, my plans if God has a different plan, that's not going to happen, right? So you can plan as much as you can, but if it's not aligned to God's will, then unexpected things will happen. And it's a matter of how we respond to that. Trusting in Him, facing the situation, like you said, and surrounding us with the right people.
So I think that if you will have the perspective of God at this point, regardless if you see it, you will know that He is in control. You will have peace in your current situation.
Right.
And you will have peace knowing that regardless of what's going to happen in the future, like I'm just knowing at it, and during the time that our family went through a difficulty like that. There was a story, then a chapter 2 of that. There's another life wherein wherein we are serving now. We can see, we may not see that the beauty of what's happening now 15 years ago, but I remember I already had God's peace at that time. He was encouraging me. Regardless, when mom told us, like, she was okay. That's God's peace. So anyway.
Good. I did not have the same peace at the time.
I remember before because you're still out there.
I was in the
wandering in the wilderness.
I was in the wilderness.
Yes, I was. So anyway.
That's a story for a different time. But
I
thank God that He has brought us closer to Him.
All right.